Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Awards Watch Oscar Podcast. It's Oscar Podcast number 51. It's February 22nd, although you are probably hearing this on the 23rd, which means it is the final Oscar winner predictions podcast. It's one of those, it's all come down to this, and here we go. I've got with me today two fantastic Gold Rush Gang members. I have Evan and Kenneth. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you for being here.
Hello.
Hello. All right, we're going to get right to it. We have a lot to go through. I think we should try and get through everything. We did last time with the predictions, and even at 3 hours and 25 minutes, it was a pretty great podcast. Before we get into the predictions, we are going to just talk a little bit about the last week of Guilds, just the wrap-up, because everything kind of finished last night, the last stragglers of the season. So we had the motion picture sound editors, and that ended up being a very good night for Hacksaw Ridge. Both it and Arrival were nominated for like the three major categories at Motion Picture Sound Editors, and Hacksaw won two of those. So I'll throw to you guys. Do you think that pretty much makes it a very good / safe bet for the sound editing Oscar? I think it does.
Yeah, I think it's a safe bet for sure, but I wouldn't call it a lock necessarily.
I didn't say lock.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
I definitely think it's given the wins that you just recounted, and also the type of film that it is, and the category we're talking about, sound editing. I think definitely has to be the favorite, and I think if those listening look at the Gold Rush Gang predictions for the Oscar winners, I think everybody has it at number one at the moment.
Yes, yeah, they do.
So, I think it definitely has to be the favorite. I think, the fact that this award was voted upon by the Guild, and that this award will be voted upon by the entire AMPS membership, always gives us a little bit of pause when we kind of, try to predict who will win this award. Sometimes it can be caught up in a sweep or not. But it seems unlikely to me that La La Land will win this award. Speaking to a sweep, if it does, it probably is winning, almost everything. But I do think that Hacksaw Ridge has to be the favorite, for sure.
Well, what about Arrival? It did win the sound BAFTA. I mean, BAFTA only has one category for sound, period, and it won that.
And it also won the Cinema Audio Society for sound.
Oh, yeah.
Which is essentially the sound mixing guild. But that's split, so it's... No, that is not split. I'm a little... I have Hacksaw at number one. It's historically an almost an easy pick to make. War movies do extremely, extremely well here. Even... very popular ones directed by basic directors with shitty male leads. So, it happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think it.
But then I look at Arrival's potential and wonder if this might be the only place that it would show up. I think this is the only place that Hacksaw could show up.
Yeah.
So, and in the broad spectrum and big picture, I look at things, based on their, guild and performance and all of that, but also, too, what it looks like as a whole, because quite often, and like you said, Evan, when you have one, a guild of professionals in that vocation voting for something, it's not the same as 7,000 people of all different walks of cinematic life voting for something. They might, see Hacksaw Ridge and be like, great, big, loud explosion, sure, I'm going to vote for that. Or they might see Arrival as like, okay, all those weird alien sounds. I guess that's sound editing, if I know what that means.
Yeah. And Eric, just quickly to correct something for those that are listening, that Arrival did. It wasn't the Cinema Audio Society that Arrival won. You're thinking of the Ace.
It was the Ace.
Yeah. Just so I know
Yeah.
we'll get checked by those that know that know that.
Arrival actually wasn't even nominated at the Cinema Audio Society.
Yeah, which
but it won the BAFTA.
Yes, and now that I even said that, I have my whole guild list right in front of me like a jackass. So, yeah. The only two Oscar nominees that were even...
there are those who are listening that would, check all three of us.
Well,
I know, believe me.
They already perked up at the possibility.
It's true, because I will clock a fool even before it's ready, so I expect and I deserve it in return. Completely.
But nonetheless, I think it's a good point that Arrival is also definitely in the hunt for this award. It's also has shown itself to be a very popular film with the Academy, with its 8 nominations. So
yeah, but even La La Land it's the first musical to ever get this nomination ever. So you can't take it lightly. It could happen, and there's
definitely a sense that the roles for musicals with AMPAS, could be thrown out the window to some extent, given its trajectory. Like sort of the obviously the number of nominations, but even like you said, the sound editing nomination or the record-breaking Golden Globes total. There's definitely a sense throughout the season, at least in some awards bodies, that it is breaking some of the rules that we thought were established.
Definitely.
Well, I mean, and also just it's very easy for people that like the movie, which I'm sure a lot of people do, just to go down the line and just check it off in every category, especially since all these tech categories do not even have a name next to the movie, just the movie in itself, and they'll just check it off everywhere.
That I think that's true, and that I am especially hearing of it doesn't mean much, but the sort of brutally honest Oscar ballots, and you oftentimes, or the ballots that are showcased in Entertainment Weekly and whatnot, and there's always the sense with people that are that don't work in that field that they're kind of like, well, what's the difference? Like, I just kind of vote for the films I like.
It is, and it's also, like you said, Kenneth, because there are not names next to these movies, why you get somebody like Kevin O'Connell with 21 nominations and no wins, because outside of the sound community, nobody knows or cares. They vote for movies, they don't vote for people.
Well, it's the same thing with Roger Deakins. That's why it's really difficult for people to make an argument for any tech person to be overdue. I mean, yes, they are, but who's actually aware of that?
Yes, I agree. Boy, okay, that was a lot of time spent on sound editing. So I hope you're enjoying this, people. All right, what else did we have this week? We had the Makeup and Hairstyling Guild, and that went to Suicide Squad, which is all right, sure, but Star Trek won 2, and I feel like what Star Trek won, which was makeup, versus they both won makeup. Oh boy, special effects makeup versus character makeup.
Right.
Yeah.
Boy. But I still feel like Star Trek is.
Which one is the one that correlates more so with the Oscars? Is it the character one or the special effects?
Special effects makeup.
That's what I would have thought as well. So yeah, I would still favor Star Trek here.
Yeah, and again, echoing what you said earlier, Evan, you read some of these Oscar ballots from voters, and you see some really weird things, like, I didn't get a Star Trek DVD, or I didn't like this, or I didn't watch this. So,
or I'm too preoccupied with current events to even watch any of these films that are, that have a lone nomination.
I
for
can't
makeup,
blame people,
or a nomination for makeup in foreign language film, which I saw some of today, and I think the brutally honest Oscar ballot.
I mean, I can't really blame them, like I said, and also I think that. I do think that these 3 films, all 3 of them, will be pretty underseen, And if anyone wants to blind vote, Star Trek is like the easiest blind vote here, because they're like, oh, well, of course this movie probably has really showy makeup. Check.
Yeah, and one of the nominees is already won for Star Trek, so it just kind of feels easy in that sense.
And the work is very impressive on top of that.
Yeah, it is. It's not a great movie, but it never has to be with this category.
Exactly. And as I said in sound editing, I think the Gold Rush gang is unanimous in choosing Star Trek in this category.
Yeah, I believe so. Let me double check and see what we have for makeup. And yes, it is. But interestingly, a tie in votes between Suicide Squad and A Man Called Ove for second place, which always gives me a little bit of pause when I'm looking at our rankings of things. Sure, we might all agree on what we think is winning, but if we have something in second place that's like tied or really close, I kind of have to look at that a little bit and think, all right, maybe we're missing where the real winner is, and then look to these ties right beneath it. But I feel pretty good about this as a category. All right, so next was the Writers Guild of America, and this was a really interesting winner because at the Oscars, Moonlight was put into adapted, as was Loving. Both of those were nominated in original by the Writers Guild, and that went along with La La Land and Manchester by the Sea, and now I'm forgetting what the fifth was, but it doesn't really matter. So everybody within our at least small circle, and from what I saw on predictions, was the only race was between Manchester by the Sea and La La Land, and it was kind of split, and everybody had reasons why one was going to win over the other. But I think more people, maybe a little bit more, had Manchester winning. I know I did, and then I got nervous, and then switched to La La, thinking there was going to be just this nonstop, sweep for this movie. And then, lo and behold, look what happens. Moonlight wins anyway. So, it was kind of frustrating because there are these instances where there's some times where all these movies are going up against each other, sometimes that they're not. Do you guys think that Moonlight's win here this is a two-part question, helps solidify it in adapting, and then the other second part of the question is, do you think it helps or hurts Manchester or La La? Where are you with that?
I think that it absolutely helps Moonlight establish itself, if it needed any establishing, as the heavy frontrunner for the adapted screenplay Oscar. So I think that was I think that was a great win on that front for it. Probably the more interesting question is what that means for the original screenplay race, the Oscars.
I agree.
Because, like you said, at the WGA we had Moonlight, which obviously won, but is now in the adapted screenplay race for the Academy Awards. We also have Manchester by the Sea and La La Land, which will be which are considered by everyone to be the two front runners for the original screenplay Oscar. And then we had Loving, which was also shifted to adapted and not nominated, and then Hell or High Water, which did get an Oscar nomination in that category. But I think we can all agree it doesn't seem to stand much of a shot at winning the actual Oscar. So I think that there are two trains of thought here. One being that the Moonlight win is really significant in that there's this sense that Moonlight and Manchester by the Sea, there was a sense that that there are this group of voters that might gravitate towards something a bit more serious or writerly or something like that, if you know what I mean. Versus something like La La Land, which I think, the script isn't necessarily the strongest element of the movie, and it's decidedly lighter and a bit more simple, straightforward, I think. And the fact that Moonlight was able to win the WGA, competing alongside Manchester and then also alongside La La Land, feels very significant, and I think could provide us with some confidence that Manchester would fare pretty well in a one-on-one against La La Land, I think. But then there's this whole idea of, like we mentioned earlier, voters like a movie and they just kind of are going down and, voting for it in every category. And this was an original musical. And I think there's this sense that it was really, I emphasize the word original because I think there was this sense that it was something fresh and new and unique. And I think that could really help it in this category as well, especially if the love for the film is as strong as, I think all of us are anticipating that it will be. And I think even in the final stretch, post WGA, I had to kind of laugh when I saw that them pushing Damien Chazelle for the original screenplay Oscar on Instagram, in the final. So they're definitely feeling that, that feeling a little bit of the pressure in that category after the WGA loss, I think, and really pushing, at least showing us that they're kind of pushing hard for that win as part of what I imagine they hope will be a pretty large sweep for La La Land.
Which is pretty funny because the Writers Guild was Sunday night and the last day of voting was yesterday. So there was definitely quite a big push there. Well,
I mean, I guess to answer how your two questions, the first one, does it solidify and help Moonlight? I think so for sure, and I actually think that Moonlight needed the help because I kind of think that Lion after BAFTA was kind of nipping at its heels in that category, and Moonlight hadn't really won anything in terms of screenplay really major anywhere. So it felt almost kind of as a default frontrunner. I probably think it still would have been the frontrunner or the favorite had it not won the WGA. But having won that, especially in a category where it was very competitive, I think that in a less competitive category at the Oscars, it really should be the clear favorite at this point. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And in terms of original, I think after the WGA, there was a lot of kind of back and forth going on the forums, and some people predicting one film and some people predicting the other, and kind of coming up with all these different scenarios and examples. And I actually think that this is the toughest race to call out of all of them this year, period. And yeah, we can come up with all of these different kind of historical examples maybe, and there's pros and cons for really either film. But this is going to be such a sort of a guttural pick in terms of what you're going to predict here that it's really, I think you can't really make a sound argument for either without the other side also making perfect sense.
Mm-hmm. I guess where I kind of run into things with, especially the Writers Guild, and again, we can keep reiterating that these guilds are, that they're their own group and they're very insular, and there is probably no group that's more into itself than the Writers Guild. They have the strictest eligibility requirements and things that are excluded, and more than any group that I can think of. And part of me is wondering if the writers, obviously really wanted to give Moonlight the win, but once the Academy took it out of that original category and put it into adapted, that almost gave them even more of an impetus to reward it. Am I crazy kind of for even trying to think that that's how they were thinking?
No, maybe. It's always really tough for me with the guilds because the membership is so huge and so varied and so diverse, and they're so populist that it's tough for me to say anything but this is what won, and that's, you know.
Yeah, I think to me it's a little tough to make that argument because the WGA. I mean, we don't have a exact number for how many people actually voted for the awards. We know that there's roughly 12,000 members in the WGA, so that we're talking about a pretty expansive membership. So I don't know if that kind of strategic thinking or if the membership is kind of too large for that to have taken hold. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I mean, I've noticed in the last couple of days, and Eric, I would be curious to hear your thoughts on this. That I've read a little bit kind of about this notion that Moonlight and Manchester kind of appeal to a similar brand of voter, and that the absence of one may strengthen the other, and like some kind of head-to-head matchup with La La Land. What do you make of that? You think that's a real thing?
I think it is a reasonable thing, yes, because I think both Manchester and Moonlight appeal to voters with a sense that this is kind of what movies are. Movies are serious, they are dramas, they are about real-life problems, versus La La Land, which is loose and free and simple, and its biggest problem is, am I going to be the biggest star in Hollywood? But that kind of is the old way of thinking, and I think that has changed quite a bit in the last decade.
Yeah, and going back even, 2 years, like 2 seasons ago, there was definitely heading into Oscar night this question around, would Birdman win directing and writing, because that would mean that Iñárritu would win 2 Oscars for an Oscar for screenwriting and an Oscar for directing. Mm-hmm. And they had really no qualms about awarding the screenplay and giving him a directing Oscar. Now, I think maybe Birdman was perhaps a bit more of, you could argue that it was a bit more of a writer's showcase. But I don't know if that's, I don't find that to be a super compelling argument.
No, I don't either, because you can look at the at the argument that the last Best Picture winner to lose the Writers Guild Award was $1 Million Baby, 12 years ago. So Birdman winning, it's not that crazy.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and that's the thing when I say that both of these films have obviously glaring weaknesses in this category at this point, because like you said, La La Land is the first Best Picture frontrunner to lose the WGA since $1 Million Baby, so that's 12 years. And then Manchester by the Sea has yet to win, and will not, obviously, since the guilds are over. It hasn't won a single guild award, not one, anywhere, including losing awards at SAG, which kind of like at the very least it should have won Best Actor on paper. So,
yeah, the only guild that it's won was Casting Society.
Right.
And
right,
like five
exactly.
5 things won that because they break it into so many different categories.
Exactly. So, but so they both have these kind of glaring weaknesses in a way, but then again, Manchester by the Sea is very writery. It's a very well-known multi-Oscar nominated playwright, and popular filmmaker that people like. And then La La Land is obviously the movie of the year in many ways. So it's tough to say, and I do think that this category, because I did just say that they're going to go down the line and check everything off. I do think that the voters are a little bit more discerning when it comes to the top 8 categories than they are with the rest of the field. Mm-hmm. So I do think that screenplay is not going to be as easy of a checkoff as, say, something, sound mixing or production design, for instance.
It's not, and it can't be underestimated that obviously not in this iteration, but this group, the Academy, nominated West Side Story with 11 Oscars. They gave it 10. The only one it didn't win was screenplay.
Right.
And then you have Titanic, 14 nominations, no screenplay nomination. There is a sense sometimes that screenplay has, and of course, these are the writers that are at least nominating it. There is a sense that the written word is such an origin and a genesis for anybody to be able to even work on a film that it's that important.
Right. But that being said, though, West Side Story, Sound of Music, Chicago, all Best Picture winners, in terms of a musical Best Picture winner, and all lost or weren't nominated for screenplay, but they were all adapted. La La Land is obviously original, and for instance, An American in Paris and Gigi were both original musicals, and they both won screenplay. So that's the thing. And again,
Gigi was adapted. I had to double check. Yeah,
was it adapted?
Yeah, Gigi was adapted, but still, It won 9, including screenplay.
Wow.
And An American in Paris is the last original musical to win picture and screenplay. Right.
Well, I mean, original musicals are obviously so very rare, but and I do think, as we saw with the Golden Globes, if they like the film enough, they'll just throw everything at it.
Is it, though? I mean,
Sorry?
We have not seen a bona fide sweep since the Best Picture expansion. So
that's true. I mean,
why would they?
No, I'm not saying that this necessarily will, but I'm saying that the Golden Globes obviously gave it 7 wins, including screenplay. So if the Oscars like it enough, maybe screenplay will kind of fold in with it as well.
Well, it's really interesting, too, that of all the major screenplay awards, they've gone to 5 different films. This is what makes these 2 categories, and even adapted, even though we're talking about Moonlight being, so locked, there's still Arrival. Arrival is an absolutely major competitor. So is Lion. So is Hidden Figures.
I would have Lion ahead of Arrival.
I would have Lion ahead of Arrival as well. I mean, I do think that Arrival did win. It did win the WGA, but that was also Lion was ineligible, which won the BAFTA over both Moonlight and Arrival. Or Moonlight wasn't in that category, so Arrival and whatever. Won it over Arrival.
Yes.
And then also
Hidden Figures.
And Hidden Figures, right. But Hidden Figures obviously is a popular film, but it hasn't really won screenplay anywhere. Then again, Precious didn't win screenplay anywhere either before it won the Oscar, so who knows.
And that may be jumping ahead, but obviously Hidden Figures also has a large fan base and is clearly an audience favorite as the highest grossing Best Picture nominee. And with so few places to award it, adapted screenplay could be one of those. It seems incredibly unlikely because the film doesn't have a ton of traction or really much traction in the adapted screenplay race. But it is one of only 3 opportunities that voters have to give it an Oscar, and the other 2 seem incredibly unlikely given that they're Best Picture and where there is a clear heavy frontrunner, and also a supporting actress where there is a clear heavy frontrunner.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. We're gonna chat about that in just a second with the last guild that just announced last night. But yeah, to try and wrap up a little bit of the screenplay and writers guild conversation. I feel very good about Moonlight in adapted. I do think that Lion, Arrival, and Hidden Figures are all going to make a serious dent in it. But again, I look at the Oscars hopefully as I try and look at it as a voter from the perspective of what I see historically, and that's looking at a larger picture, and I try not to get too wrapped up down, and get into the rabbit hole of these brutally honest voters of what they like and what they don't like and why they don't like something, because there's 7,000 voters, and you look at one thing, and if that alters your perception that much, then you need to step back a bit. But I do look at things like, here's my best chance to reward this film, or here is what I think is the best part of this film, and I do think that voters do think that way, and history backs that up to a certain extent, where you do have The Pianist beating Chicago in adapted screenplay. You have situations where there is a passion for something, or a social justice movement to something over something else. It just happens. I don't know. So I that's why I feel pretty strongly about that. But with original, I'm completely. I'm torn. I'm honestly torn.
It's interesting that you mentioned The Pianist, because that was another sort of crazy screenplay race in recent Oscar history, where you had a variety of films, winning in that adapted screenplay category over the course of that season, and then The Pianist, Ronald Harwood's screenplay, finally surprising at the Oscars with no major precursors for adapted screenplay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing at all.
And looking at adapted, I think that like you said, obviously we all consider Moonlight the favorite, and I know, looking at the Gold Rush gang, that everybody has it in first place, so there's a lot of confidence on that front. But I do think it's important to kind of recognize which films are peaking around the time of Oscar voting, and I think Lion and Hidden Figures are two that were very much peaking around that time.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
They definitely have support.
I absolutely agree.
We can assume they have a lot of support.
Oh boy, we could probably spend a great deal of time on the screenplay categories, because there is so much fantastic history and statistics to build off of. But I think we'll just have to wait and see what our final predictions are going to be. Those will be out on Friday. Let's go to the last guild that announced, and they were last night, Tuesday the 21st, and it was the Costume Designers Guild. And I think nearly everybody worth their prediction weight in salt obviously had La La Land winning contemporary. And fantasy was kind of, most people had Fantastic Beasts winning. It did not, and Doctor Strange won, which was a bit of a surprise. It's a non-Oscar nominated film versus Fantastic Beasts. But the big surprise of the evening was in Period, where most of us thought that Jackie, which had won the Critics' Choice and the BAFTA, was just going to kind of sail through there and move on its way to being a very likely Oscar winner. But look what happened. Hidden Figures won another Period Guild Award. Well, just another Guild Award, but another Period Guild Award. And that kind of throws things into a bit of a tizzy. It's not Oscar nominated in that category. It only has 3 nominations. So this was, in a sense, reminded me of the Writers Guild, where you had a guild that was just kind of going on its own, doing its own thing, and not really caring about what the perceived frontrunner was. Where are you guys on... I guess let's start with just looking at the costume category, and then after that, let's look at Hidden Figures as a bigger picture conversation. What are you guys looking at costume design after the CDG Awards?
Tough call, I think. Mainly because neither Jackie nor La La Land are really quote unquote the typical winner in this category. I mean, Jackie is period, but it's not the type of period that normally wins here.
Mm-mm.
And La La Land is the kind of film that normally never wins here at the Oscars. So it's a tough call. I mean, La La Land is obviously the much stronger film overall, and this is the exact kind of category where what we were talking about earlier, where people go down the line and just check,
Mm-hmm.
and they can just check this off in the same kind of way. But then again, Jackie also is, while it's not necessarily the typical period winner, it's also very iconic costumes. Like, everyone knows that pink suit and things of that nature. And this was recreated here pretty close to what it really was. So it's tough to say.
I kind of went back and forth. I looked at, we have this moving, living doc where we can change our predictions, and then they show up on the main page of Awards Watch at our whim. And I keep looking at costume design, and I have La La Land at 1 now and Jackie at 2, and yesterday they were reversed, and tomorrow it might be switched again. And it's really tough, because if it's truly just between these two films, and it probably is, unless there's some crazy thing where Fantastic Beasts win, we're going to see some kind of record or statistic broken, regardless of which of those wins. No, in the 19 years of the Costume Designers Guild, no contemporary winner has ever won the Oscar. It's extremely rare for a contemporary film to win this. I think All That Jazz from 1979 was the last contemporary, and that had some pretty snazzy dance costumes and whatnot. I think what's in Lala's favor, and I know a lot of people are like, all it is a brown suit and a yellow dress. And it's not, because the colors of the dresses and the way that they're used are extremely evocative. They are completely a part of how the entire film is homage after homage to old Hollywood. So I think it does a disservice to think that the costumes aren't worthy, but aren't possibly or likely going to win, because they do have a certain amount of emotional connection, I think, for a lot of people watching. And I think that can have a big impact. I don't know where you guys are with that, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, it really does. I mean, and then if someone makes an argument for Jackie, I'd probably say the same thing. It also makes perfect. I mean, both of them are reasonable choices, and it's again one of those, I guess, gut categories. But La La Land, I mean, it makes sense to me as a winner here for sure. And this would be the perfect film to break that, not contemporary film not winning streak, is particularly because not only because it's a strong movie, but also just because the category itself isn't very strong in terms of the typical Oscar-winning films in this category.
That's totally true. There's no bodice-ripping period piece here.
And that's the issue with, and I think that's what gives us some pause with Jackie, is that while it is very iconic, and it kind of is holding that period drama spot that we, at least in, as a contender for the win, we also have Florence Foster Jenkins as a period drama, and then Fantastic Beasts and Allied also have period costumes as well, but they're not. At least we're not assuming they're contending for the win. But Jackie is not that typical period drama that we think of, where it's that easy film that voters can check off because of the the sort of quintessential period gowns.
Yeah,
like
well,
you said, like
yeah.
the bodice ripper.
This
or
isn't
something.
like the Young Victoria or the Duchess or Elizabeth the Golden
Or Marie
Age.
Antoinette.
Or
Right.
Anna Karenina. Or
Yeah.
Now, last year's winner was obviously a bit unorthodox in Mad Max, but obviously very showy and unique.
Yeah, and that was a film that had a ton of nominations, and like you said, it was extremely showy. The thing with Jackie is that we keep saying it's iconic, but I wouldn't really call the costumes showy. I mean, it's a it's a suit. She's wearing a suit and then some gowns.
Yeah, there's only a few things. She has that, fantastic little montage where she's drinking and smoking and trying on, a dozen dresses, but I mean, we've all done that, so it's whatever.
Sure.
All right, well, maybe at least here on the podcast.
Not in the White House, though.
But Eric, I agree with you that there is.
Am I right, Melania?
But I think that two things come into play. One is that Jackie, while period and while yes iconic, is not your typical period contender in this category. And like you said, there's also the fact that it doesn't have an accompanying production design nomination, which we know something was sort of a lone costume design nomination, and by lone I mean not having the accompanying production design nomination, hasn't won this category since Elizabeth the Golden Age.
Which is, again, is one of those, what people mostly consider period.
Oh yeah, I mean those costumes were completely over the top to the point of excess, to the point that they, a lot of things.
A lot of things were excess in that, but yes.
Yeah, a lot of things affected.
I heard it was really windy.
A lot of things affected the final result of the failure of Elizabeth the Golden Age. The costumes played a part. They were completely ridiculous, but anyway, nonetheless they were easily awardable. But here, that's one. That, on the one hand, it is slightly it's holding that period spot in a slightly weaker position, and also, like you said, maybe we haven't had a contemporary costume design winner since All That Jazz. Similar, but it's not as if La La Land is totally unshowy, where they're just walking down the streets in like Levi's. We're talking about, like you said, these colorful costumes that are very evocative and move with the movie and the music, and are very intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I don't think it's contemporary, let's write it off, because contemporary films never win. So I think that's a little misleading, because yes, a contemporary film hasn't won in a while, but these costumes are like I said, very intentional, and like you said, very evocative. And I think, on the same token, Jackie is not your typically strong period contender. So I think that it would be wrong to just kind of kind of discount La La Land because it's a contemporary contender. And I don't know. I'm probably talking myself into predicting it. I don't know.
Well, and what I will say about Jackie, though, I mean, it did lose the Costume Designers Guild.
BAFTA, yeah.
Right, but I'm saying, it lost to a film that's not nominated for the Oscar, and it also lost. It's a very populist award. I mean, this is a little bit. I think the Academy is a little bit more discerning in terms of what they award than the Costume Designers Guild.
Yeah. Well,
typically.
which was what was interesting to me about Hidden Figures winning at the CDG was that it didn't strike. We're talking about a guild that obviously is composed entirely of costume designers, and it didn't strike me as the go-to choice for coustume designers to like sort of coalesce around the costumes and Hidden Figures. Mm-hmm. While they're quite lovely and also similarly colorful, I wouldn't have thought that they would be an obvious choice for costume designers. And we've seen some, we have obviously seen winners before that have been slightly unexpected, like W.E. Winning a few years back, which I think was a surprise to many people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was who designed the costumes in W.E. It was
Ariane Phillips.
Yes.
but I was, that's why I was sort of surprised that I didn't think it would be kind of the go-to choice for costume designers that they, but in kind of segueing into the next topic, I think that really speaks to how strong Hidden Figures is overall and just how beloved the film is in the industry at the moment.
Yes, and that is a very good segue there, Evan. Because yes, the next topic of conversation as we go from Hidden Figures' surprising win at the Costume Designers Guild is Hidden Figures as a whole, because that is a film that, despite only earning 3 Oscar nominations, Best Picture, Supporting Actress, and Adapted Screenplay, has done extraordinarily well at the guilds. It won the SAG Ensemble, beating Manchester by the Sea and Moonlight. It won the Art Directors Guild for Period, which it's not nominated for at the Oscars. It won the Casting Society for Period. It won, as we just mentioned, the Costume Designers Guild for Period, which is not nominated for the Oscars. It's the highest grossing Best Picture nominee currently, and the biggest box office grosser that has a black female lead. These are all major, major things. This is a film that is not and cannot be underestimated. But at the same time, if that was the case, why doesn't it have more nominations? Why did it not get a little bit more? Or are we looking at a period and a year where January, February are much more important than the beginning of than the end of the calendar year?
Well, and you kind of wonder, Eric, also if the nominations were voted upon maybe 2-3 weeks later, would it have had a stronger showing? And would that have spoken more persuasively to where it to the strength of the movie at the moment?
Yeah, I mean,
and every year we always kind of look to those few films that we say, if voting had only been held later, that would have had a much better showing. I'm thinking of even this year something like 20th Century Women, that we felt that it came on a little too late, and had it been released either a few weeks earlier or had voting began a few weeks later, maybe it would have pulled in Annette Bening as opposed to just the lone screenplay nomination. Or going back a few seasons, Selma, where we thought that that also would have done better if it had been more widely seen right around the time that voting started. Obviously Hidden Figures was, I think was, number one, had expanded and been number one at the box office right around the time that voting started. So it clearly was visible, but nonetheless was a late opener.
It was, and even though it won the Screen Actors Guild Cast Award, it didn't have screeners out. So that win was, I don't know. It was shocking. It was a very, I don't know. I'm still so kind of beside myself with what that win meant and how it was genuinely achieved. I saw the, what was it, like 20-25 minute sizzle reel that they were running around film festivals, because the film wasn't complete yet, in October. And I talked to Mimi Valdez, and I talked to the president of Fox 2000, and their focus at the time, anyway, although she could have just been telling me something I wanted to hear, was that they wanted it to be a strong box office film. and that was part of the release strategy. They wanted it to be PG so that it could be shown in schools. At the time, the score was not set, and it wasn't ready in time for any festivals at that point. And so I was like, okay, that's kind of where this is, and if it becomes an awards thing, that's really cool, and it's almost like I feel like the guilds this year, more than any year recently, are playing catch up to Oscar nominations and to Oscar mentality and to social mentality. I feel like they are kind of covering bases where they aren't or can't be covered elsewhere. And I don't mean that as any type of dismissal of Hidden Figures as a film or its quality. Just looking at timelines, calendars, groups, and purely from an academic point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of those people that initially dismissed this film in terms of awards potential because of the release strategy, but I'm really glad that they managed to get what they got out of it, and I really do think that had the nominations been a little bit later, it would have at the very least gotten production design over like Hail Caesar and costumes over Allied.
Yes.
Yeah, that's definitely possible, and it's sort of this weird dynamic because, earlier I cited things like 20th Century Women and Selma, but it wasn't as if, Hidden Figure, those two films, sort of massively underperformed with some precursors within the season. But it wasn't as if Hidden Figures wasn't seen by precursor awards bodies. I mean, like I said, like you mentioned, Eric, it won the Screen Actors Guild for Ensemble, which means it actually got an ensemble nomination, back in mid-December.
Yeah.
And it was widely seen and sort of predicted by pundits to get a Golden Globe Best Picture Drama nomination because it had been seen by the 70 to 90 members of the Hollywood Foreign Press. So, it was seen, it just didn't have the same sort of buzz, and maybe it needed that added jolt of its box office performance and kind of the buzz as it opened. We'd always assumed that this film would perform better if it had opened in the summer because it would have that box office story or that kind of audience buzz to go along with whatever other buzz it had going for it at the moment. So maybe what it really needed was to open earlier to just to capitalize more on this box office success, because that's definitely been its major story is just how successful it is, how well liked and beloved it is with audiences. I mean, like you said, we're talking about a film that is the highest grossing Best Picture nominee thus far with $145 million and counting, 7 weeks in the top 10, including 2 weeks at number 1, and I think 6 of those weeks it was in the top 5.
And for the record, those 2 weeks at number 1 were the first time, I believe, that a black female-led film was number 1 for 2 weeks since 2001. So it's the things that this movie is doing are far outreaching its Oscar potential. Yeah.
So I think we can say that it definitely didn't sort of massively underperform with some of these precursor bodies. I think we can also assume that had it opened earlier and become this story that it's turned into, it probably would have done a little better with some of those.
Yeah, I mean,
those precursors as well as the Oscars. If it wasn't becoming a phenomenon right when voting was happening, but maybe it happened a few weeks earlier.
I mean, I'm assuming possibly that had it been released in the summer, the thing that really could have caught on was maybe Taraji would have gotten a Best Actress nomination.
Yes, instead of fucking Emily Blunt.
Right, at SOG or whatnot. So, I think that maybe that could have happened. And, of course, as we said, the production design and costume nomination maybe would have gotten into score or song, but then again, it also got a score nomination at the Golden Globes, and that didn't really translate. So it's tough to say. I mean, ultimately, I still think the film did very well in every respect. So Good for
Yeah.
them. I mean,
It is,
really.
and I mean, part of me, and I know we'll talk a little bit about this with Best Picture toward the end, is thinking, okay, Hidden Figures has this SAG win. Is it going to go home empty-handed? That would be totally insane, but it's really not. It's only got 3 Oscar nominations.
Yeah.
American Hustle won the SAG Ensemble. It had 10 nominations and lost everything. So it's not out of it's there. There isn't like a precedent or a history that we can look at to be like, oh my god, this will be so weird if it loses here. There just isn't.
No, there isn't. And I mean, let's face it, it's almost guaranteed that it's going to go home empty-handed unless something very surprising happens in adapted screenplay. Because Octavia Spencer, I love her, but she's not winning, and
No.
it's not going to win Best Picture either.
No.
So,
Well, we'll talk about that at the end, but yes, I don't believe that it is either. It's those 3 nominations that absolutely give me all of the pause that I need to for this. If this was something that had 6 or 7 or more, then I would be like, okay, we're in a different world than where we are now, but we're not. So, all right, more sparkling wine. And on to the next. Oh my god, we're an hour and 11 minutes in. Well, an hour in. And we're just getting to like major like categories. This is going to be really fun. Or at least really long. All right. We're going to start with a pair of categories now that are pretty contentious and surprisingly horse races right now. One of the things that I always say every single year is that from people that do predicting and awards watching like we do, we're generally of two minds. One, when things are super predictable and really easy, we get really bored of it and we kind of complain a little bit and wish for something to happen. And on the other side, when a race is really close and hard to call, we kind of get really fidgety and pissy because our predictions aren't necessarily going to be as good as we want them to be. And actor and supporting actor are 2 of those categories right now. And we're going to go through actor first because, boy, this category is going to be right to the envelope, I think. I think supporting actor a little bit less, but I genuinely think that lead actor, which is between Denzel Washington and Casey Affleck, is going to go right to the envelope. We have so much on either side of these guys that gives them a great argument for winning. Affleck has like 40 different awards leading up to this. He has the Globe over Washington. He has BAFTA, where Washington was not nominated. He has the Critics' Choice. But he lost the SAG to Washington. SAG has gone in this category 12 years in a row. So is the year that they're not going to go with SAG, and I don't need to be subtle about saying it, is it going to be the year where a black actor could win after 2 years of Oscars So White? I don't think so. I think Washington is winning. What say you, gentlemen?
maybe.
That is the safe answer.
It's tough to say, mainly because Denzel Washington won the SAG. That's really the only thing that he won, but he's already won the Oscar twice. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily like an argument to say, oh, he's not going to win it this time, but he's won it twice. And yes, this is the year after 2 years of Oscars So White, but we most likely will have at least one, likely two. Well, really, even in supporting actor, whoever wins will be a person of color.
Yep.
So I don't mean to sound insensitive, but the Academy would probably thinking they have their bases covered. So I don't know. It's tough. The SAG stat is a strong one. Denzel Washington is very, very popular. This is an extremely baity actory role, but Affleck's role is also very acclaimed. His film is very well liked. It has a number of nominations. It's clearly in the top 5, if not top 3. So it's really fluid. And again, and SAG does love these kind of very theatrical type of performances. I'm not saying that the Oscars don't as well, but it's going to be, like you said, down to the wire. I can see an argument for either. Maybe I'm slightly leaning towards Denzel at the moment, but that could change any second.
Yeah. No, it's even if I'm picking what I'm picking, there is no way that I have any type of security or superiority in that prediction, because anybody can make an argument to the other side. I mean, I can look at Washington and Affleck as all kinds of examples, as Meryl Streep winning because she had never won a SAG award before, and this was Washington's first SAG win. I can look to Sean Penn and Mickey Rourke and go, okay, this is sort of like that. This is a previous Oscar winner versus a sort of bad boy that people want to give some credit to, but not enough. And then I go back to Streep again, where essentially Washington is... I don't even know if it's arguable that he is the most respected black actor in Hollywood, both within and outside.
It's not arguable, but I also don't think that he I'm not saying that he needs the same kind of narrative, but I don't think he has the same kind of narrative Meryl had when she won for the Iron Lady.
Oh, he absolutely doesn't. He doesn't have Harvey Weinstein saying Denzel hasn't won in 29 years on buses.
Yeah.
Who has that? Nobody has that.
Well, no.
It's madness. But,
Yeah, no, it's a tough call to make. I think it could, like I said, it could really go either way. Or are we in another 2002 situation where everyone was sort of biting their nails trying to figure out who's going to win, Daniel Day-Lewis or Jack Nicholson, and then Adrian Brody won, and Ryan Gosling will be the Adrian Brody this year.
So first, fuck you. And second, fuck off. No. Because no. That's... no.
I mean, no, it's not going to happen, but...
That would be really horrible. It would be really horrible. As long as it's not Andrew Garfield, I actually don't care that much, but yes.
Yeah, there would also seem to be a slight but significant difference in sort of the magnitude of the roles between Ryan Gosling in La La Land and Adrian Brody in The Pianist.
No,
I mean, if anything, ironically enough, Garfield would be much closer to Brody. But
yeah, this seems like a dead end.
No, it is. I was mostly joking, but yes.
I know. But I mean, it's looking at our predictions right now. It is a real horse race. Washington just actually pulled ahead today with 46 points, meaning he has 6 number 1 placements and 4 number 2s, which means that Affleck has 6 number 2s and 4 number 1s, putting him at 44 points. And these lock in tomorrow, so we'll see. We might have a dead heat. I'm excited because, and like I said at the top of this, I'm excited from the perspective of an awards watcher that we have a race that is really close and cool, and we don't know until the moment. That's fun. I really like that. But I do think that there is. I feel like there's more at stake this year and this season. I don't know. I know and we talked about it in the nomination podcast, and I'm going to talk about it again because a lot of podcasts talk around this and not really about it as much. And I want to feel like I can understand where people are coming from in looking at Casey Affleck as an actor and not as his personal life. Obviously he's nominated. Obviously Mel Gibson is nominated. So there's a certain element of these groups that can look past personal histories and nominate their work anyway. But are they going to win? We've seen both historically. Again, thinking about 2002. So is it overinflating to think that people sitting down with a ballot are looking at Casey Affleck and going, I love that performance, but this sexual assault history is something that I've read about on the internet. I might not know exactly all about this story, but I've read about it and I feel uncomfortable about that. And just don't vote for him because of that. How real do you think that is? Other than Brie Larson.
Right. I mean, it's possible, but because we know that ultimately the Oscars are a popularity contest. Mm-hmm. So how popular you are, how liked you are matters a lot. Mm-hmm. And there are a few people that are more popular and more liked among actors than Denzel Washington.
And oh my God, has he been playing this game like he has never played before?
Yeah.
Just gonna say.
Is it possible that some people vote against Casey Affleck? Of course, I'm sure there are some that will. It's just a matter of, if enough do, but more than that, it's probably, like we just said, that oftentimes this boils down to a popularity contest, and we know that Denzel Washington is extremely beloved by the industry, and like you said, Eric is campaigning and really reminding us of how much we love him, I think. And this was a passion project for him as well. And when his competition is Casey Affleck, who, it goes without saying, has given the most lauded performance in this category this year, but is not the same sort of titan of acting in the industry, and B, is not as, sort of well-liked and is a bit offbeat, and a little more polarizing, right, to put it mildly.
Yes. And I'm asking pretty directly because at the moment, I have Washington winning. Evan, you have Washington winning. Kenneth, you have Affleck winning.
Yeah, so, it's hard because it's one of those things where there are other factors at play, and you try to view the race as objectively as possible, and kind of thinking about. But voters are not objective. Obviously, it's all about who they like more, or what moved them more, or extraneous factors that have nothing to do with the performance.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be pointed out too that since Washington directed the film that he's in, that only twice in the last 88 years have actors directed themselves to Best Actor wins. Laurence Olivier did it for Hamlet in 1948, and disgustingly enough, Roberto Benigni did it in 1998 for Life is Beautiful. So that is the group that Washington would join if he wins.
Yeah.
Which would be a first for an African American. There's going to be a lot of firsts that happen this year, regardless pretty much of what happens. There's going to be a lot.
And you're right, this is definitely one of the more challenging categories heading into Oscar night. I think it's, like you said, a real sort of roll of the dice who will end up winning. With Denzel's obviously going for his third, and it would be is very difficult. Like you said, it's not like he has the same type of campaign behind him. That while he is campaigning, it's not like he has the same type of campaign behind him that Meryl Streep did for The Iron Lady, where it was just firing on all cylinders from sort of the beginning of the season until the end. And Casey Affleck is also part of a film that seems to be a bit stronger in the race, but it's a different kind of performance. It's quieter and a bit, whereas Denzel Washington gives the more this more actorly kind of louder performance. And we, like you said, we know that he's extremely loved in the industry, and Casey Affleck has without trying to inject personal opinion into it too much, has some alarming sort of pieces of his personal story.
Sure. I mean, I think he's tried to quash that over the campaign as much as possible, but I think a small portion of the voters are going to still know about that and recognize it. It needs to also be noted too that amazingly, of all of Denzel Washington's Oscar nominations and wins, this is the first time he's nominated for something that is also Best Picture nominated, and he himself is nominated for Best Picture as a producer of Fences. Which I think helps him enormously. I mean, I'm not sure how many people saw the last-minute pushes from Amazon and Paramount for each of these guys in the trades, but it was intense. Just massive, full-page, real serious ads.
Yeah, I saw quite a lot of that online as well.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
And it should be said, both films are, like you said, high visibility, have done very well at the box office. I think Fences is, over $50 million at this point, and Manchester by the Sea, while not at that same level, also did extremely well.
Yeah, the both did very, very well. Amazon is proving to know how to play the theatrical game much better than Netflix at this, and good for them. But yeah, I mean, Fences, for what is essentially, if you read a lot of these honest Oscar voter ballots, a filmed play. And at 2 hours and 20 minutes, has done extraordinarily well. Really well. So it's all props to that. This is not, a movie that's made $5 million or $10 million, and, you can go, all right, yeah, sure, Washington is really good in this, but it's not like a big film. It's not like a big real film. So I do feel good. I don't feel like great locked or anything like that, but I feel good. Goodness gracious. Are we even going to get through all these categories today? Because I'm not sure. We might just have to run through some things. because we are basically kind of like barely getting through stuff. But that's okay.
A fair amount of them are pretty straightforward, though. These are just sort of the more.
I think so. I wanted to get through. I wanted to start off with some of like the really difficult things. Kind of do like the Oscar show where you start with like, oh, okay, here's the things that are going to keep you interested in, and then here's like the go to the bathroom categories, and then we're going to come back for some more. All right, let's go ahead and leave actor where it's at. And again, you know, all final predictions are going to be Friday, so keep your eyes out. And let's go to supporting actor, which for all intents and purposes is between SAG winner Mahershala Ali and BAFTA winner Dev Patel. And I don't want to beat around the bush. I want to go right to it. Kenneth, Evan, who are you predicting?
Mahershala Ali.
And the same.
And I am predicting the same. So, there we go. Do we even need to talk about it? I think we probably do. But let's, yeah. How much was Patel's BAFTA win a dent for Ali? Because I will say that Moonlight's 4 nominations with BAFTA was a pretty serious underrepresentation of the film. And although I would have predicted Ali to win, his loss was not surprising.
I agree. I think that maybe for a split second after Patel won the BAFTA, I kind of thought, oh, maybe something will happen at the Oscars with Ali's frontrunner status. But that was mainly because, as typical for Awards Watch, everyone in the forum started losing their mind. And then when I kind of stepped back and thought about it, I was like, it's very, I mean, yeah, I was predicting Mahershala Ali to win the BAFTA, but I think it makes sense that Patel won there. And I just think that we oftentimes tend to kind of just like BAFTA throws something at us and we end up just throwing everything out the window and saying, oh, everything's different now. And when in reality, it's not necessarily the case. And I think that this category is that particular case. That I mean, Patel maybe is a little bit more likelier than he was before the BAFTA, obviously, but I ultimately think that considering how much the Academy liked Moonlight, I think Mahershala Ali will just win.
Yeah. It's weird that it has more Oscar nominations than BAFTA nominations, but there you go.
Yeah. Well, it essentially maxed out at the Oscars, Moonlight.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, I mean, gosh, I thought this maybe was going to be a little more contentious than that. But I mean, the reason I thought so is because looking at the predictions, unless you guys are going to change them, both you, Kevin, or Kenneth and Evan have Jeff Bridges at number 2 still, and Patel at number 3.
Unless... Oh yeah, because I hadn't changed that in a while.
Okay,
I can change it too, but
right.
that's really why.
And that's fine because this happens all the time. Anybody that's a regular listener to this, we have changed our predictions in the middle of the podcast through conversation all the damn time.
Yeah,
it just happens. That's good. So, that just leaves one person, Monica, who still has, and she probably just she's very late in changing things. Very late. Her and like Robert and Richard, like all those last 3 people, very late.
Are you putting them on blast?
I'm putting them on blast right now. I am basically giving them the Maxine Waters treatment right now. Because they need a water treatment facility, and that
so what you're
treatment
saying
facility is
scumbag.
Maxine. They are scumbags.
You came with your list of names.
They're all scumbags. I have my list out right now, and those are the names.
You're basically saying that you're not the one.
I'm not the one.
Yeah, I got it.
I told you before that she would be name checked during this podcast, and here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. I'm crossing my legs as we speak. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm actually kind of maybe pleased/relieved that we all feel pretty good about Ali here. And I mean, it really is that SAG win. But as we get closer to the end, does that mean, and this is a sidebar conversation, that SAG is going to go 4 for 4 this year with acting?
How often does that happen? I don't know.
It does not happen that often. But, many times there is an issue of timing and eligibility that changes that from happening. Obviously, Idris Elba winning SAG last year and BAFTA and Independent Spirit and every fucking thing possible, and then not getting Oscar nominated. That's a reason why. And I think you can find a lot of those examples in this race. You can find Christoph Waltz. You can go to awardswatch.com where I have an entire article about that exact thing. I'm not plugging, myself or anything like that, but I'm just saying that it's there if you want to go see it. So, yeah. I think it's a really good category. But you do have to look at issues of eligibility and who's nominated before you make like a rash decision.
Yeah.
That's all.
And we did have just in recent history, and maybe it's late, so I'm missing something, but both 2014 and 2013, I believe we had all 4 Screen Actors Guild winners repeat at the Oscars. In 2013, it was Matthew McConaughey, Jared Leto, Cate Blanchett, and Lupita. Mm-hmm. And then 14, Eddie Redmayne, Julianne Moore, Patricia Arquette, and J.K. Simmons.
Yes, and that was a really good year that where something like BAFTA was not a factor for Dallas Buyers Club. So so that's where you look to Screen Actors Guild as the closest example, as the best precursor for these awards. So yeah, I feel really good about it based on that. Even if it was just that, I would feel good. But I also feel good about it as a whole, as a big picture. Despite the fact that Lion has surged in the last month and done very well at the box office. It's done the campaign game really well in the final stretch. So no shade to that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do we have next? Let's see. Oh my God, the categories that everybody's really excited for, and that's the shorts. But this year, I think there's some real competition. I know it's kind of like the bathroom categories and all of that stuff for a lot of people, but I think there are issues within some of these categories, especially the documentary, that could really speak to a lot of voters. So let's try and go through them quickly because I want people to still listen. But let's start with documentary short because I think actually any of the 5 are in fantastic shape. I think 2 or 3 of them are in the best shape. At the moment, I'm looking at Joe's Violin as the winner, despite the white helmets feeling more topical and something that I had as the winner for a long time, and available on Netflix. So I might be insane. What are you guys looking at?
Well, I mean, I've been kind of on the white helmets bandwagon for a while, and then after all the, recent political stuff, it became even more kind of clear to me that as clear as this category could possibly be. That I would probably stick with that. Why are you going with Joe's Violin?
I feel like it's gotten a lot of high profile screenings and attention. Jon Stewart specifically, so that kind of made me lean, at least for this week. I'm not saying that that's going to be the case tomorrow,
right?
But because I had White Hamilton since the day it was nominated.
Yeah. I mean, I usually end up doing the predictions for this 5 seconds before the Oscar telecast because, like, I have no clue what I'm predicting, so it's completely a crapshoot. But White Helmet sounds good to me, and that's basically where I'm at. Very technical.
It is
very technical.
And, you know, the shorts are voted on by everybody now, and you know, you can watch them, you know, pretty easily. And something that's 10 minutes is going to be a lot quicker than 40 minutes. So I kind of look at it a little bit like that. If somebody's going to watch the whole thing, Watani, My Homeland is the quote unquote Holocaust documentary short this year. So I'm not going to discount that at all. Actually, like I said, all of these films have a really great case for winning. So I won't be surprised if any of these win, but I'm looking at White Helmet's Joe's Violin and Watani, My Homeland. For now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
Yeah, and I'm, you know, we can never really feel, you know, totally confident about this category, but I am going with the White. I think I'm going with the White Helmets. Of course, Joe's Violin is also quite buzzed, like you said, and it does sort of touch on a subject that has been very popular with Academy voters, which is you know, kind of the Holocaust theme. That's been a subject matter that has been rewarded. I shouldn't say popular. I just should say that it's been rewarded. You know, in years past.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a tough category. You know, we never really know. We can never feel 100% confident with that, and it really just depends on how many voters, you know, sit down to watch these films. So.
Yeah, I mean, even, you know, like I have said, in the middle of a podcast, I can look at something and go, you know what? My argument is false, and I'm hearing things that I want to hear or need to hear, and I can change my mind. And I'm sure that I will change my prediction back to the White Helmets before these final predictions. I know that I will. I feel like I'm going to.
Yeah. And I even read a little bit about the 4.1 miles recently.
Yes.
Too, that, you know, so.
Oh my God, I can't even tell you how many emails I get for 4.1 miles and Joe's Violin. Oh my God. The PR people on that case are working overtime. Well, worked.
Yeah. So
it's extreme. It's not extremist, but it's extreme.
But on the other hand, I do feel like, you know, moving along in the shorts that moving to animated, that it perhaps, I think you may disagree, Eric, but I think by and large, you know, there is the, you know, people where most of us are assuming that there's a clear front runner for the for that category.
Everyone except for me. Yeah, everybody in the Gold Rush gang is predicting Piper, the Pixar short, before Finding Dory, to win, and I am not. I'm predicting Pearl. So,
Pearl.
I believe is the proper
Wake
pronunciation
up,
of it.
Eric.
A Pixar short has not won for like 15 years. Piper is cute. I love it. It's pretty, but it's slight. No. I would almost put Parasiter and Cigarettes at number 2 before I would put Piper.
And last year we did have, you may be onto something, because last year some of us...
The Sanjay? Is that what you're
some
thinking?
of us correctly predicted Bear Story.
Mm-hmm.
And there was... And the reason that I think we went with that is because it was sort of the most... it was definitely sort of very emotionally accessible and emotionally involving.
Yes.
I think that, sort of about family, and I think that played a role there.
Yeah,
So I assume that's part of the reason you're going with Pearl, is that it's a bit more involving on that front.
It is, and there. I mean, there's an issue with that. It's the first virtual reality short to be nominated, but there's no there's no telling how many people saw it in that version, so it might be kind of limited in that. I feel like Piper and Borrowed Time, which are both Pixar and Pixar adjacent films, are really cute, they're really clever, and they're really fun, and they're really beautiful films, but they are slight. So I feel like things like Pearl and Parasite and Cigarettes are just more of what people might be looking for, especially this year. That's just how I'm feeling, and I don't think that I'm going to change my thought on Piper. I think I will keep it at number 2, and Pearl or Parasite and Cigarettes will be number 1.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I am with that. I like all of them. I think they're all really good. I just, again, I can't think of myself. I have to think of recent history and of course people that are going to see everything.
Yeah. No, that's definitely logical. No, you're right. Because I remember last year we kind of we were racking our brain too with this kind of stuff, and I just think with these kind of things, it really is best to err on the side of like the emotional and the moving, rather than the quirky and the light.
Yes, and sometimes it's just really good to look at Ann Thompson's predictions and go, okay, maybe that's what I'll pick.
True. Which to continue down the line of shorts is why I'm sort of on the fence in live action with whether I should. I think I have Time Code at the moment.
Oh my God, I know, me too.
But I'm thinking, perhaps Sing is that kind of sort of emotionally accessible kind of, or just heartwarming short that I should just be going for.
You mean the Enemies Interiors?
Well, that one, or Sing about the choir.
Yeah, I'm actually going to switch to Sing today as my number 1.
Yeah, because it kind of gives you that, that it strikes me as that kind of short that those that watch will just really sort of, it's a crowd pleaser, they'll love and vote for.
What's Time Code about? Mind you, I'm saying this while I have it at number 1 in my prediction.
No, just to get to the Sing thing, it's funny because it feels like it goes against, kind of what I was just saying, in that people are looking for, an emotional connection to something, and then you look at documentary feature for the last couple of years, and it's like, oh, Amy and 20 Feet from Stardom, and it's these rough, tough, musical, semi-biopic sort of docs. So maybe something like Sing totally makes sense.
Yeah.
And Time Code is about a security guard who finds love in a hopeless place.
Oh.
So, whatever. It's good.
It's another tough category. I mean,
Yeah, this one is also really tough.
It's good, but it's really weird because it's extremely similar to a live-action short film that went to Cannes from a Awards Watch forum member about a lot. I don't know how to describe it. A real-time convenience store robbery told only on CCTV footage cameras. So there's 9 different cameras up, all telling the story from a different angle. That's exactly what Time Code is. So I'm just throwing that out there, that happened. Aaron Salazar. So there you go.
Well,
cool.
yeah, and then to just close the door on live action, I do have Time Code because I feel like that was sort of initially the most buzz of the live action shorts. I am kind of leaning toward Sing for the reasons that we discussed. Although at the same time, I will say that these are always the toughest categories to predict. And, it really comes down to how many voters are actually watching these and, even a somewhat small contingent of passionate supporters from one of them can be enough in these races.
Absolutely.
True, especially because I imagine that as compared to the rest of the nominees, the actual voting pool for these is a lot smaller. I would imagine a lot of people just skip these categories altogether.
Well, as we've seen with some of the brutally honest voters, yes, they do skip them.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Shorts are done. We're going to go to animated foreign language film and documentary feature now. And we'll start with animated. I don't think there's a lot of disagreement here. All of us are predicting Zootopia with Kubo as our number 2s. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of room here.
Yeah, I don't really think the Kubo BAFTA win was really indicative. I think Zootopia will still pretty comfortably win the Oscar.
I do too. Although,
Yeah, I agree.
I would love a Kubo win because it would be awesome. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. It would be... Yeah, no, that's it. All right, cool. Let's move on. All right, this is cool. A contentious category. Again, foreign language film. We've got The Salesman, Tony Erdmann, Land of Mine, A Man Called Ove, and Tana. And right now, The Salesman and Tony Erdmann are at 43 and 42 points, which means they are as close as they could possibly get without being tied. I have The Salesman at number 1 and Tony Erdmann at number 2. It looks like you do as well, Evan. But Kenneth, let's talk about your placement a little bit. If it's current. Is it current?
No.
Okay. What's your current placement?
I would probably have Tony Erdmann at number 1 and then The Salesman at number 2.
Okay.
Then Land of Mine, and then The Man Called Ove. And Tana would definitely be 5. I actually think that this category is... I can see any of the first 4 winning, other than Tana. That's the only one I think that's completely out of it.
So it's winning then, is what you're saying.
Right.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. In an era where only the Foreign Language Film Committee voted Land of Mine would feel like a total winner. Like when No Man's Land beat Amelie.
Right.
But now that it's broader, I feel like The Salesman or Erdman are the only choices.
Yeah.
And it's actually pretty tough.
It is tough.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Erdman is sort of, has been one of the, foreign language films of the year, although in this category it's been surprisingly weak.
Yep.
When you look at precursors, well, it has done well with critics' prizes. I mean, let's face it, that was a while ago and they hardly matter anymore. But if we look at, for example, the Golden Globe, where Tony Erdman lost to Elle, which missed the short list for this category.
Mm-hmm.
And at BAFTA, it lost to Son of Saul, which was obviously eligible and won the Oscar last year. And was in the Son of Saul, it should be said, was a much more dominant frontrunner in this category last year than Tony Erdman is this year. So, and Tony Erdman is also, but it was extremely well received, beginning all the way back at Cannes, and with that said, though, I think The Salesman is just very of the moment and has emerged as kind of the topical, timely choice, and it's just it's I don't know. I mean, it's just extremely entertaining. It's very accessible, I think. I think Asghar Farhadi is a former Academy Award winner, so obviously his films, he has a fan base. I don't know. I wasn't really thinking about The Salesman as a winner originally, but it's definitely been gaining buzz, and it's been doing pretty well at the box office since it's opened. It finally opened in theaters, toward the end of January. So that's kind of what I'm leaning toward.
I'm feeling the same way, and even though The Salesman was not as well received as a Separation, I feel a little bit stronger about it because when/if people want to make a statement with some of these votes and wins, this is a really good one to make. And you have also a foreign film which is tackling an extremely, extremely traditional American play versus a German comedy / satire / whatever the fuck it is at 162 minutes. Maybe The Salesman is the more accessible movie in these. I don't know. Erdman still feels like the right choice, and I'm not going to deny it.
I mean, typically when these kind of, when the foreign language film of the year is nominated, it usually wins. Like, they don't win when they're like not nominated because they didn't make the short list or whatever it is. But typically they are. And yes, Tony Erdman lost the BAFTA and it lost the Golden Globe, but it lost them both to films that aren't even nominated here.
Yes.
Yeah, and if anything felt like sort of the foreign language event film of the year, it would seem to me that was more, despite Tony Erdman's critics wins, it would seem that was more Elle than anything. Certainly, widely discussed. But obviously that wasn't eligible, and I'm not totally convinced that would have won even if it was nominated here.
I also wonder how much, or if any effect, positive, negative, will it have that the English language version of this film has been announced and cast already?
Yeah. I don't know if it would be that big of a deal, honestly. I don't know.
I just wonder if it would kind of get more people to actually watch it, is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
And I will say that even if Academy members do watch Tony Erdman, and also watch The Salesman, I do think The Salesman to me would seem to be more in line with the Academy's sensibilities, to me anyway. Like Eric said, it's very accessible. It's not not that Tony Erdman isn't entertaining and accessible in its own right, but it is a sort of a 3-hour drama, whereas The Salesman is a tighter drama thriller that also that also is homage to Death of a Salesman.
Yeah, I mean, The Salesman is obviously a lot more straightforward, and Tony Erdman is kind of offbeat, but I think either would make sense. I'm still sticking with Tony Erdman for now, but I mean, I have a couple of days to think about it.
Exactly.
Isn't emotionally involving, sort of centered on, relationship between a estranged father and daughter. I mean, it definitely is. I just think The Salesman has peaked at the right moment, and has kind of, to me, emerged as a sort of clearer choice in this category.
Yeah, I mean, I look at the the time when the voting changed from the crappy little documentary committee of horrible people, and when it became much broader. And I feel like The Salesman is an easier choice, but Tony Erdman makes perfect sense. I don't have any argument against it, honestly. I don't. It's going to be very tough when I do a final prediction. It would be awesome for a foreign language film to have a female director. It'll be the first since Jesus Christ, what is it? Suzanne Bear, Better World, 2010.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's that. There's so many things to consider.
I wasn't a big fan of this film at all, actually. I actually kind of hated it, but that's besides the point. But I
of which, Erdman or Salesman?
Tony Erdman.
Okay.
The Salesman I loved.
Yeah.
But I would be happy for Marin Ade. I think she's talented.
Yeah, no, I would be super happy for her. I would love that. So I wouldn't have any complaints.
That in sort of summarizing this category, that it does, you hesitate to eliminate any contender in some of these categories, but it does feel like it will ultimately be between these two films, even though I know that Land of Mine has some buzz, as do the other two nominees, but it does sort of feel like we've come down to The Salesman and Tony Erdman in this category.
I agree, because the only times that weird things have happened were before the rules changed, like when Departures won over The Class or Waltz with Bashir. Those were, or The Secret in Their Eyes over The White Ribbon. I mean, those were exceptional years before the broader change.
Yeah.
Which, sort of favors these, films that are more widely seen, sort of consensus type choices. And that's what they are, the consensus choices, yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's move to documentary feature, because this is actually a bit, I believe, a category that is potentially contentious as well. We've got some number one placements in both OJ Made in America, which is predominantly the favorite here, and 13th from Ava DuVernay, director of Selma and Middle of Nowhere. And right now, looking at what the three of us have, I have 13th at number one, which is bizarre. And you guys have OJ at number one. And I had OJ at number one until a couple of days ago, and I just kind of toyed with the idea of 13th being a little more accessible. Being, less than 2 hours versus 7 hours and 45 minutes. Although I know that I'm going to switch to OJ, back to OJ, probably by tomorrow. Should you convince me, or should I stick with my 13th prediction?
I think it's a reasonable choice, really, because, like you said, the accessibility factor. I also think Netflix is going basically balls to the walls trying to win an Oscar for the first time, and people know and like Ava DuVernay. I think for her it was probably tougher to get the nomination than the win potentially.
Yeah, I actually, all cards on the table, predicted a snub for 13th.
As did I. But now that she has it, yeah, it's, she can do it. She did win the BAFTA. OJ wasn't nominated. But
it was actually, I believe, the only BAFTA it was the only film nominated for BAFTA in this category.
Right.
Yep.
But OJ is just the most acclaimed film in this category. Obviously, it's just had so much buzz throughout the entire year. It's kind of, I think it's the documentary movie of the year, movie miniseries, whatever you want to call it. So ultimately, I think that it will squeak it out, as we just said, as the consensus choice.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But the 13th is possible.
Yeah, true. I mean, we think of we usually try to gravitate toward. So these days, toward what we would consider the more populist choice. I think that's fair to say when looking at winners in recent years, from Amy to or by populist, I guess you could say the most widely seen and buzzed, and 20 Feet from Stardom, I guess, too, which had a pretty major campaign. I mean, it wasn't exactly like documentary wins.
No, I agree with both you guys. So I'm gonna throw out I Am Not Your Negro as a potential spoiler here. Both OJ and 13th have already been seen and opened. But I Am Not Your Negro has grown into actually quite a big film. It's grossed over $3 million. And it's, again, one of those very of-the-moment films.
Yes, I loved it, and it would be amazing if it won, but I ultimately think that those two films just have a little bit of a leg up on it. And again, if we're talking about consensus choices, one of those two seem a lot more likely. Is it possible for an upset to happen? Absolutely. I mean, this category, who knows? But I wouldn't bet on it.
Yeah. And I do think that, if we suppose that OJ Made in America is a bit of a tall order for some voters to get through the entire documentary, because it, like you said, it is very long. That the 13th makes more sense to me as an alternative, given, like you said, it obviously did win the BAFTA, but as we said, is the only film in this category that was actually nominated for the BAFTA.
Yes.
That category isn't especially telling, because there to be a lot of eligibility issues with documentaries at BAFTA versus the Academy. But
sorry.
Well, sometimes you need a drink.
Mm-hmm.
But it also has Ava DuVernay's name on it, and she's been front and center promoting the film, and she's a extremely sort of respected filmmaker, and her profile has only been growing over the past few years. So I think that helps the film visibility wise, if it needed any help. So I think that OJ, like Lear, is definitely kind of the choice for a documentary this year. But if anything were to unseat it, because perhaps it is a grueling watch to get through all, 7 hours? Is that right, total?
7 hours and 49 minutes?
Yeah, so nearly 8.
Yeah.
Then I think the 13th definitely makes more sense as the alternative to that.
And I mean, I also hate to say it, but the 13th is also just kind of basic.
Yeah.
And in terms of just filmmaking and kind of it's not that this kind of stuff matters, but I'm just saying that it's just an easy, kind of very palatable kind of watch for people. It's a very typically made documentary. It's not very challenging, and OJ and I'm Not Your Negro are a little bit more artistic in a way. So I just think that the 13th is also the type of film that could appeal to that kind of very middle brow Academy voter as well.
Very, very, very much so. The argument that I had been making for OJ Made in America before was that even at nearly 8 hours, if you just watch the first 2 hours, it would be pretty easy to be hooked. I don't know how easy it would make you to vote for it, but it's pretty easy to be hooked at that point. And yes,
there's also this sense of when it is so when something like OJ is so rewarded that there's just this sense that you just kind of want to go along with it. So.
True, and also another thing is that we have to remember that this is also about like a famous person.
Yeah.
And last year Amy won. The year before that it was Citizen 4, which is what's his name?
Yeah.
Edward Snowden.
Right, Snowden. So it's kind of like.
Yeah,
at least in recent years, there's been at least these documentaries that have been winning are about like name figures.
Yeah,
and I think that's the difference between the Academy at large voting versus the body itself.
Correct.
And I think it's easier, like we said, for those films with the highest visibility to just win because everyone's heard about them. Everybody knows they've been winning other awards. This kind of peer pressure comes into play where you just go along with whatever the consensus has been, especially in these specialty categories.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm with you on that. All right, cool. Then I guess we can move to like a category that is super, super easy and maybe really locked that we can just kind of run through quickly, and that's supporting actress. Because Hello and Goodbye, right? I mean, Viola Davis, that's...
Done.
Can you even imagine what anybody else would be? How awkward and weird that acceptance speech would be?
No, this would be like probably one of the biggest upsets ever, maybe?
I would venture to say that in my lifetime, and I mean in my actual lifetime, not in my shady, I'm 75 years old lifetime.
I would never.
Of course you would never. It might be the biggest shock in decades for her to lose. Decades.
Well, fortunately, it won't. For her and us, it won't happen.
But it's not going to happen. And she's going to give an awesome speech, and she's going to wear something strapless that shows her totally yoked out arms, and I'm like happy for it.
Yeah, no, I say get it.
Mm-hmm. She's just, to set the stage, she has won fucking everything. She was the only nomination for Fences at BAFTA. And she won. That's it. It's done. Goodbye.
Yeah.
So
no,
I'm sorry, White Michelle Williams, but you are a distant second.
Yeah.
Distant.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and Eric, I think that just kind of goes back to who Viola Davis is as an actress and
And the
role
role.
itself. I mean, for many of us, I know you included, we were kind of thinking that she would, that she was the sort of easy front runner when this was announced in whatever category she ended up competing in.
Yep. I knew she was
And
going to win no matter if she was lead or supporting.
I agree 100%. I think she would have actually, considering how the lead actress race ultimately turned out.
Yep.
I think she would have won Best Actress.
So do I. And it really, it's still, and it will until Sunday and beyond, it will upset me that she did not make the decision to go lead. Because she could have beat Emma Stone.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I respect her decision. She's still going to win. The historical factor just meant a lot.
I mean, to me, I kind of don't really usually get into this whole what's bigger, a supporting act Oscar or a lead Oscar. I think, and especially in this day and age, an Oscar is an Oscar. So it doesn't really ultimately matter. But I think in this particular case, I think the historic impact of it would have been significant.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's still already a lot. She's still the first black actress to have 3. Octavia Spencer is the first. It pains me to say this. She is the first black actress to be nominated after she has won.
Crazy.
Why? How? It blows my mind. But this is.
But, I mean,
here we are.
Yeah. I mean, it's right. It's just kind of unbelievable that this year is a first.
Yeah, but I will focus on the positive there, though, that who would have thought 5 or 6 years ago that Octavia Spencer would be an Oscar winner, multiple Oscar nominee? So I think that it's a pretty amazing story for her, and just how far she's come, and how well she's been able to kind of manage to do in this industry, and how she's really capitalized in many ways on her Oscar win in ways that other actresses haven't been able to.
100%, because she has done all kinds of movies, from Snowpiercer to like the TV show, like was it Red Band Society?
Yeah.
She has done all kinds of things, and
and she and the thing is, it hasn't all been throwaway. It's like you said, it's been like with a pretty diverse range of roles, and obviously also there's been some quality roles. Even with outside of Hidden Figures, she also did have some traction, and she was actually very good in Fruitvale Station.
Don't even get me started about how much I love her in Fruitvale Station and think she deserved that nomination, because that would be a whole nother podcast.
Yeah,
I would go on and on. So no,
I'm glad for her.
I'm super glad for her. I'm glad for Nicole Kidman to finally get another fucking nomination. I am glad for this category to have 3 black actresses for the first time ever. There's a lot to be really, really, really excited about this category, regardless of the fact that Viola Davis is a lock to win. That's an awesome thing, and I love it, but there is a lot about this category that is really, really exciting. So,
Yeah.
I just want to throw that out there. Outside of, Michelle Williams, but still. Anyway. Crickets, as Michelle Williams often gets for her performances. All right.
Michelle Williams.
Poor Michelle Williams.
Well, I mean, yes, some people just looking at the roster on paper might have thought there were 4 black actresses nominated.
Oh my God!
Well, the Critics' Choice Awards probably made them.
They might have. They might have just thought that it was like, oh, that is. Yeah, we might get in trouble for that, but it's all right. All right. We're going from supporting actress to the 2 music categories, song and score, which kind of feel like duh, but I don't know. Are they? After last year? After Sam Smith winning over Lady Gaga's huge, epic, anti-college rape performance song, and then fucking Sam Smith wins? Is that happening? Is Justin Timberlake winning? After
No. No, I mean, I would be absolutely like flabbergasted if La La Land doesn't easily win both of these categories. I mean, an original musical that's like the heavy favorite to win best picture, losing music would be like, why?
Okay, well, I've seen you, and there is no flab to be flabbergasted. So, I'm just gonna say, even though I'm with you on this La La Land.
Flattery will get you everywhere. By the way.
I know. No, I'm kind of I don't know why. Maybe I'm like masochistic, but I watched La La Land and Moana last night again.
Okay.
And I know, I do this to kind of put myself in the possible mode of a voter, which is generally going to be watching a movie at home. And I'm like, this is a pretty basic song, this How Far I'll Go, but it's also still Lin-Manuel Miranda. Maybe there's something there. And I know that my personal preference for the ranking of these songs, which will also be out tomorrow when I do my If I Pick the Oscars plug.
Wow.
Can't wait.
You're like
I know.
RuPaul or something. Is it available on
Dude, did I say-
iTunes or
I
whatever?
know. It should be available. Actually, the podcast is available on iTunes. You just gotta look for it. Yeah. No, I'm sticking with How Far I'll Go as number 2 because I feel like it is so very traditional for this
True.
kind of win.
Yeah.
But I'm not, even though all of us have that Justin Timberlake song at number 4, all of us do. And all of us have the Sting song at number 5. I am not looking at that Timberlake song as a long shot at all. I'm just not. But I'm looking at the Lin-Manuel Miranda as a real possible spoiler.
Yeah, for me, it's hard to see City of Stars losing, but I agree that just because it's sort of emerged as kind of the song to reward from this original musical, front runner for Best Picture. But I do agree that that How Far I'll Go makes sense as a number 2 because Lin-Manuel Miranda is obviously extremely popular and well regarded everywhere. And like you also said, it's a very traditional song in this category, perhaps more so than something like City of Stars, even, which is a bit more low key. How Far I Go is kind of the typical movie musical ballad.
Yeah, from the 90s, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But I also kind of had the same line of thinking at the Globes, and I was kind of surprised that they didn't go with Lin-Manuel Miranda there. And obviously, the Academy is a different voting body, but I was kind of feeling that he made a bit more sense at the Globes, and that the Oscars would go with something from La La Land. But obviously the Globes didn't. The Globes went with City of Stars as well, and I just imagine it'll quite easily win the Oscar.
And look, even something like Falling Slowly from Once, which was kind of an original musical drama, also won this award. So I think City of Stars has this in the bag. I mean, I really do.
Yeah. I mean, it was... Falling Slowly was actually a pretty easy prediction, though. So...
And maybe City of Stars.
I mean, too. City of Stars to me feels like a very easy prediction.
And to be, this was actually the year that they decided afterwards to only allow 2 songs per film, because 3 songs from Enchanted were nominated that year.
Right.
And after that, they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna do our system where it's a point based." And so then the very next year, only 3 songs were even nominated.
Right.
Two of them from fucking Slumdog.
Well,
So.
I mean, I really just think this is like probably the category that I like the least in the entire. I just really don't. I wish they would just get rid of it. But here we are.
But here we are. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know.
And I think that. I mean, I do think, just to kind of wrap up this category, that perhaps in thinking about things like Falling Slowly, and I'm just trying to think through some of the recent winners in this category. Let It Go was very much, Eric, I think what you were referring to with How Far I Go is kind of the traditional movie ballad.
Very much.
But Writings on the Wall really wasn't. And even Glory was perhaps a little different. I'm just thinking, perhaps the Weary Kind was obviously a little bit different. So maybe along with.
The Weary Kind is also kind of something that will be similar to City of Stars, also like an original song for like an original kind of musical.
Saying perhaps what the point I was making wasn't that, but perhaps that just what they reward in this category has changed, obviously, and this would have been an easy choice like in 20 years ago, but How Far I Go I'm speaking to, and perhaps sensibilities have changed a bit, and I think City of Stars is, for all the reasons mentioned, not just that, to me is a very clear front runner.
I think I agree. I think it's the front runner as well, and this category has, because of its weird point system thing, you can have a random amount of nominations. You have like a 2011 situation where there's only 2 songs nominated, and one of them isn't a song that hit anywhere, because this category is so ridiculous because of how this branch decides to nominate shit. I wish all of these little sub-branches, sound, visual effects, music, song, all of this, just kind of broadened and opened up what they did, because what you get are random nominations where you have to vote as a whole on these tiny esoteric things sometimes, and it just it drives me crazy. I don't know, it just pisses me off, and I can't explain, and I will never be able to explain the win for Writings on the Wall last year. Never, ever. I look at what's nominated, and I look at history between. I can't explain it. I can't. It's awful. And it's only made worse by Sam Smith's ridiculous speech, and I just want to punch him in the face.
Sure, it was quite a shock.
It was bizarre. But, that's also a really fantastic example of where the Academy producers feel like they have a bead on what's going to happen and are not able to call it correctly. Sometimes they do it great. You've got, Barbra Streisand delivering Catherine Bigelow her Best Director win because they knew it was going to happen. You've got, Spielberg, Coppola, and now I'm fucking forgetting who the third one was, delivering Scorsese his directing win because they knew it was going to happen. And sometimes they tip their hand way too much, and sometimes they don't. They hold back. And by allowing, only a handful of the things to songs to be performed last year and not others, kind of did that. And then, fucking Sam Smith won. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Definitely felt like Gaga's moment, and Diane Warren's, of course, too, given her, her Oscar history.
Yes, absolutely. All right, we're going to go to the next categories. We've already talked a little bit about costume, we've talked about makeup, and we've talked about production design. I actually want to skip to cinematography so that we can wrap up the podcast here. Cinematography is really interesting because we've got the ASC going for Lion instead of La La Land, and we have a lot of the prevailing thought excuse me, going to La La Land winning. In fact, looking at everybody's predictions in the Gold Rush gang, we've got 50, we've got all number one spots. Yes. Everybody's looking to La La Land as winning.
Yeah, I think, even though Lion's surprised with the ASC award, La La Land to me still makes sense as a clear winner. I mean, its cinematography is a real sort of showcase technical element of the movie, and it's beautiful, but it's also a real technical marvel as well. So it would seem like an easy choice here, and even with the film underperforming at BAFTA, this was still one of the technical awards that it did pick up. So it despite Lion taking the prize from the American Society of Cinematographers, it still feels like La La Land should be a safe runner here with AMPAS.
I mean, I agree with you, but I mean, just as a very brief side, what do you make of the fact that Lion won here at the ASC? Isn't that weird?
Yeah, it is weird. I don't know if it speaks to the strength of the cinematography in Lion itself, or if it speaks more to the cinematographer himself as sort of a emerging face in that field. Having done Lion and also Rogue One, as well as a myriad of other successful films in recent years.
Yes.
I'm really not quite sure. I mean, Lion Lion is perhaps more, in the traditional vein of what we think of with the Oscars and cinematography. You have these landscapes and these vistas, and there is that kind of traditionalist element to it, but I really can't. I can't quite see it winning the Oscar. I was kind of really keeping an eye on whether it also was able to repeat at BAFTA, but
yeah.
But La La Land did emerge there, despite the fact that Lion was well liked.
Clearly, yes. I mean, we all three of us have La La Land at number one and Lion at number two, and I have to think that is because of the ASC win. So, because we also all have Moonlight at number three. So would that be correct in assuming?
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay. I mean, I don't imagine an upset here.
If anything upsets, it'll be Lion. I just don't. Moonlight does not come off as a winning type of film for me in this category, at least in terms of what typically wins.
Mm-hmm.
And neither is Arrival.
Yeah. And Arrival and Silence and even Moonlight haven't really established themselves in this race. Of course, that hasn't stopped some winners in years past, but I don't really see it.
No, I don't either. Honestly.
And La La Land's very pretty, and at the same time, and I think it's an easy choice here.
And I think Lala's done a pretty good job, and Lionsgate as a whole, in producing little bits and pieces to show on their YouTube page. I don't know if anybody has seen the bit where Damien Chazelle is standing behind Linus Sandgren, tapping him on the shoulder, left and right, about where to move the camera during this like fast edited scene, and it's awesome. It's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of thing that when you see it in action and in motion, you're like, okay, I have a better, deeper feeling and understanding of this this section of the craft, and I hope and I want, even if it's not realistic, for as many voters as possible to be able to see elements of filmmaking that maybe they don't get to see. If you're an actor and you're just, sitting and waiting for your lines to be fed to you or to say, you're not understanding and you're not witnessing the conversation between a director and a cinematographer as to how exactly this next blocked scene is going to be shot. You're just doing your point and your marks, and you're hitting your places, and you're not thinking about things in the mindset of the cinematographer. And I think like a video like that shows that quite a bit. Lionsgate has done an extraordinary job of showing that. A24 has also done a fantastic job with Moonlight of showing so many different elements of a film, of how it's put together. Lion may be a little bit less so. But
yeah, and that's why I think that La La Land is a clear front runner here. I mean, like you said, they've emphasized the technical skill, and also it has this, it's extremely colorful, and the cinematography plays a large role in kind of transporting the viewer into this sort of kind of dreamy sort of whatever anti-Trump world.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I mean, I guess I was gonna wait for that till the last part of the conversation, but yes.
Well, we're basically there, so
we're getting there. We're very close. Yes. We're very close. Oh my god, look at that. We have 3 categories left. That's it. Kenneth, do you have any thoughts on cinematography before we move to Best Actress?
I mean, I just think La La Land really is going to win. I do.
All right, cool. Then I guess we can move. And I know it's late for you guys. We're on a different coast. I'm on the West Coast. You guys are on the East Coast. I have to respect that. It's late for you. It's a school night. We're gonna go then to Best Actress, which I don't know how much conversation in terms of prediction there's going to be. There might be a little bit in terms of preference, but I'm just gonna leave it at that, and say that all of us are predicting Emma Stone to win. She's got the Globe, the SAG, the BAFTA, Critics' Choice. What? Oh no! No. Wait, does Portman have the Critics' Choice?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, whatever. Still, she's got everything that matters. So Stone losing at this point would be, like, mind-blowingly crazy.
Yeah, it would be quite a large, upset on paper at this point. She's essentially won everything that she's needed to win, and she's, the face of the Best Picture frontrunner. It is likely going to pick up a slew of other Oscars.
Yes.
So she's looking, and she's kind of in that mold that the Academy loves to award. Kind of a rising kind of Hollywood star.
Ingenue.
Ingenue.
Mm-hmm.
So she seems like a pretty clear choice. Obviously, in second place is Isabelle Huppert, who many of us, would love to see win, and won the Golden Globe for lead actress in a drama, and oddly, wasn't nominated at the Screen Actors Guild or BAFTA. The former was a snub. The latter was because the film was ineligible for BAFTA this year.
Yes.
And there's some there's some thinking that perhaps that Huppert would have won the BAFTA had she been eligible, but obviously we'll never know. Nonetheless, she showed up at the ceremony anyway to present as a presenter. So decided to be seen there anyway. So, but nonetheless, I feel like there's some hoping that she can win, but it really is more wishful thinking if you look at this race objectively.
It is, and I'm not kidding myself in any way as to Huppert's chances here. And I wish that she had been BAFTA eligible and SAG nominated so that we could see more head-to-head competition between her and Stone, but we haven't seen that. So it has to fall to Stone here, not only for what she's on precursor-wise, but because she falls very much into the popular appearance of a Best Actress winner, which is very ingenue type of related.
Yeah, and it's interesting that what I'll say is that it's kind of come down to these two. I mean, I think we can, obviously Emma Stone is the overwhelming front runner. If anybody has a small chance to upset, it would be Isabelle Huppert. I think we can safely say that the other three don't really seem to be factoring into the equation for the win all that much.
Yes,
but it kind of is interesting in looking at those two that the only time they've competed head to head in a category was at the Critics' Choice, I believe, before the Oscars.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they each won Golden Globes in separate categories, and then technically they competed against one another for the major critics awards, but it wasn't a set of nominations. So this, it's interesting that it comes down to them, and for that reason, and that other time that they competed against one another, neither actress actually won.
Yeah. The thing that I keep coming back to, and which is driving me absolutely crazy, is that damn $1 Million Baby. Because the last time that Best Picture and Lead Actress have aligned was $1 Million Baby. Again, that is a movie that keeps coming back to this conversation. And it keeps coming back because it's the last film that was released in December to win Best Picture. It was the last film, as we talked about at the top of the podcast, to lose the Writers Guild and win Best Picture. There are so many connections now to $1 Million Baby and La La Land that don't make any, superficial sense, other than the fact that they both take place in Los Angeles. And for the record, $1 Million Baby taking place in LA as a Best Picture winner, that was the first time that's happened in, I believe, 50-something years. So it's a weird connection. There was a point where the Academy did not want to acknowledge movies that took place in LA. They did not want to acknowledge movies.
So, Eric, what was the stat about LA? Sorry.
There hadn't been a movie that was based in LA since $1 Million Baby in, I believe, and you can fact check me later, 50 years. It just never happened. And since then, it's happened a lot.
Oh yeah.
But once that happened, it hadn't before. And then she won and the film won. And now you have Emma Stone, who is clearly going to win. La La Land is going to win, and it's LA based. And you've got right behind it Argo and Crash, and you have movies that are now embracing the Los Angeles, Southern California culture, both in film and social aspects, where they did not have that before.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. And we've definitely seen that shift in not only films that take place in Los Angeles and that are about LA, but that are specifically about the industry itself, too.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
And what I will say, just a sort of a final thought on the rest of the category, is that, you know, while we all agree that Emma Stone is the heavy favorite to win, and it would be quite a surprise if she didn't, I also think, you know, we should, you know, reserve some praise for Sony Pictures Classic and the campaign that they put together for Isabelle Huppert, which is sort of the primary, maybe only reason that she even made this lineup to begin with, was the kind of the attention they brought to this sort of unorthodox and offbeat Best Actress contender.
So I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm clapping, and I'm moving around in my seat because yes. I couldn't agree more. Michael Barker, the CEO president of Sony Pictures Classics, has spearheaded this campaign and nomination like no other. And
it's really
God.
It's really something. I mean, this was a film that debuted in Cannes, and that, you know, they I believe Sony Pictures Classic picked it up before it premiered at Cannes, and there was some sort of, you know, minor chatter about whether or not they could launch some kind of awards campaign. But after it was seen, you know, many were sort of writing it off as too out there for the Academy, too bizarre, you know, and you know, they really committed to this film, and have kind of defied the odds every step of the way throughout this award season. Absolutely.
And for the record, I did, you know, I'm just gonna say, I did push Isabelle Huppert here at the Golden Globes, and she won, so I'm just going to say that maybe, you know, my juju worked this time, unlike other times where it was basically the Antichrist. So you never know.
Well, we'll hope. I mean, if she were to somehow upset on Oscar night, it would, you know, she would surely be one of the sort of most deserving and winners, you know, ever in this category. So
I mean, just like to take like a moment, can you imagine if that were to happen?
Yeah, I can't actually.
I can't either, and it's okay because I want that more than I cannot imagine it. It would be amazing, incredible, awesome, deserved, exciting. I mean, it would put two of my absolute favorite nominees of this year together as winners. That would be Barry Jenkins and Isabelle Huppert. And now that I have a picture of both of them together, like kissing, my life is basically complete.
Well, you know, we can just, we can hope for that on Oscar night, because she really is remarkable in not only Elle, but also in Things to Come, another sort of major performance from Isabelle Huppert this year as well, that is perhaps not as recognized as Elle, but just as impressive.
And yes, and I think a lot of people had predicted the possibility of her being BAFTA nominated for Things to Come since she was not eligible for Elle. But if you would like, you could always check the Awards Watch 50 favorite performances of 2016 and see, you know, where Isabelle Huppert landed with Elle and Things to Come. Or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. If you want to check. I'm not saying, you know, you should go to awardswatch.com and look at the 50 favorite performances. I'm not saying that at all. But
if you're a fan of Isabelle Huppert, you won't be disappointed.
Absolutely, I am saying that. So, yeah. I mean, you know, you can never accuse me of not being Eddie Redmayne thirsty level thirst here because, you know, I am. I you know, I can't help it. All right. I think we've... Okay. Kenneth, you've been very, very quiet.
Because I agree that Isabelle Huppert is the best in this category, and okay, I also agree that she's not going to win.
Okay, good. All right, so you're with us. Okay, perfect. Okay, good. All right, that puts us to director. We are almost at the end, folks. But, you know, this is, yeah, we're at like 2.5 hours. We're like a full hour from the prediction podcast. This is a piece of cake. All right, we're at directing. And, you know, I don't know how much more there is really to go in this category with Damien Chazelle having the Globe and the BAFTA and the DGA. I don't know where there is to go from here because it doesn't seem like there's anywhere to go.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think that this is pretty set. Yeah, I not to segue into Best Picture, but at this point it would be, would be hugely shocking if Damien Chazelle or La La Land were to lose either director or picture, I think.
Yeah, and I know we have seen in the last, 5 years a lot of director-picture splits, but they were pretty specific and I guess explanatory is the best way to put it. This is not one of those situations. I feel like it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there were certain reasons I feel like for those splits, but this one, it is pretty clear that it will win both of these awards.
I mean, I feel like the film and Chazelle have been like in lockstep with one another this entire time. So,
agreed.
It's interesting. The last few years, we've had this sort of suspense in picture and or director heading into Oscar night, and we have some suspense in a few other categories, but sort of for once, this one appears to be pretty straightforward. Like last year, there was, the Spotlight versus The Revenant versus The Big Short. The year before, it was, Birdman versus Boyhood. Some holdouts for Boyhood. And this year, we definitely don't have that same drama in picture or director.
No, it's stressful, but it's really
even
not that.
We had some 12 Years a Slave and Gravity. We had backers sort of holding their breath when the announcement was made.
And in a weird year, if 12 Years and Gravity hadn't happened, we might be seeing a Moonlight La La Land split. Maybe. But absolutely not this year.
No. I do not think so.
So, yeah. Well, all right. So for the record, though, at this moment, what's your ranking of the top 5 for each of you guys?
For a picture?
No, for directing.
Director.
Oh, well, I would have Damien Chazelle, Jenkins, Lonergan, Villeneuve, and then Mel Gibson.
Yeah, I would do the same.
I actually have Villeneuve at 3 and Lonergan at 4. But otherwise the same.
Yeah, I mean, that one seems pretty clear. I think after Damien Chazelle, Barry Jenkins makes the most sense as a number 2.
Yeah.
Also an incredibly rewarded director this year.
Yeah, very much so. I feel like it's like weirdly underestimated, but
Yeah, because he won early in the season at least, winning L.A., New York, National Society, and the National Board of Review.
I know. How crazy is that? And that's another thing that I've rewatched. I mean, I've rewatched pretty much the top 5 films again to kind of feel like, I mean, as we lead into the Best Picture predictions, I have to understand who I am as a movie watcher, as a predictor, what I feel about a movie, and I have to watch things as the person that I am and how I feel, and how I think something is going to be voted on by the Academy at large. And I may have my own feelings about certain films or certain performances, but if I let that get too much into my, basic academic predictions, then I'm finding myself in a pretty silly scenario. So, as we go into Best Picture, obviously all of us currently have La La Land as the Best Picture winner, which is a perfectly understandable, predictable, and makes sense prediction. It has won, of the major guilds, it's won 9 awards. It won the ACE, American Cinema Editors. It won the Art Directors Guild. It won the Costume Designers Guild. It won the Casting Society of America. It won the Cinema Audio Society. It won the Directors Guild, the Makeup Artists and Hairstylists Guild, the Motion Picture Sound Editors, the Producers Guild of America. It's
won a lot.
It's won 9 guilds, which is more than double of anything else. I mean, how can you argue against that ever? It's virtually impossible. No matter how much Moonlight is everybody's number 2, and it's everyone's number 2, it's you cannot argue La La Land losing, unless ... you have a really strange year where Hidden Figures hits the right point during voting and manages to pull off an absolutely, utterly crazy, random Best Picture win and nothing else. And I'm just going to throw that out to you guys right now, because it hasn't happened with as few nominations since The Greatest Show on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what else won Best Picture with this few wins? Spotlight.
True.
The last time that won with his few nominations was The Greatest Show on Earth.
Spotlight had additional nominations and also a locked Oscar win, in addition to picture. But
100%.
I just don't really. I mean, I don't really see, despite the fact that Hidden Figures was peaking at the sort of the right time. It's not as if La La Land wasn't as well, and maybe a little earlier, but it's remained incredibly popular over the course of the entire season, and is really like a consensus choice at this point. So I think it should I think it's an easy choice, and I think this voting system benefits it hugely.
That's the thing. This preferential ballot, I don't think that La La Land could lose with this ballot at all, and that's part of the reason why Spotlight even won in the first place, is because of the ballot. Had it been like a straight vote, I bet you something like The Revenant would have just won.
Yeah.
And the thing with Spotlight winning was also a completely fractured open race, and this year that's just not the case.
Yeah.
La La Land has won everything.
And Eric, I sort of get what you're thinking along the lines of Hidden Figures being this huge populist hit, but looking at the preferential ballot, it's not as if La La Land isn't the same thing, but on a greater scale this award season.
It is, and I'm not
like crowd favorite. I mean, this is like a pretty simple choice, I think.
It is, and I'm not trying to be the the clickbait kind of like, oh, but what if this happens? Because I'm looking at the correlation of SAG and Best Picture and SAG of Oscar, and as we talked about very early in the podcast, Hidden Figures is not a frontrunner in anything right now.
Yeah.
So it's going to win SAG and lose all three of its nominations. Mm-hmm. If it does, again, like we said, it will be the first since American Hustle. But that's only, it's only 3 years. But that's 3 nominations versus 10. And before that, we're looking all the way. We're going to keep going back. We're going to keep going back to the Full Monty.
Yeah.
Which is the very early years of this category. And the Birdcage.
And I believe the Full Monty did win an Oscar for score.
It did. So actually, it's the Birdcage.
Yeah.
96.
Yeah, I was thinking that Anne Dudley had won for that. And so, I get where you're coming from. It's a very popular film. It's an important film, and it's also a film that that continues to sort of, as we mentioned earlier, kind of break records, one way or the other. So, I get the appeal, and I think that this is a film that, based on all reports, is very popular with the Academy membership. We talked earlier about why it didn't perform better with the nominations, if that's true. And I think we've sort of exhausted that point. But, I think if for the purposes of finding a place to reward Hidden Figures, we want to look to any of its 3 nominations. It would seem to me that adapted screenplay is perhaps the best opportunity to do that if voters are looking for a place to reward it. I don't think picture is really the place, but perhaps it could be adapted screenplay. Then again, like we mentioned earlier, it hasn't really had a foothold in that race, which hasn't stopped contenders in years past from winning that award. And maybe, as we mentioned earlier, although they typically had, another Oscar, like we mentioned Precious, and of course that had a locked supporting actress win. We talked about Ronald Harwood's script for The Pianist, but that, of course, won lead actor and director, both in somewhat of a surprise, though. So I just don't really, I just don't really see a spot for it in the winner's circle.
I don't either. I just want to introduce the conversation because as a SAG cast winner, it does put itself in a category that then becomes, kind of its own thing. It puts itself into, the Birdcage, Braveheart, kind of early SAG category listing. It's a strange win. Had Moonlight won this category, which it should have, then the wins that it builds off of would make sense. Mm-hmm. But to win the ensemble category and then to win no Oscars feels weird. It feels weird. But then, like you said, it isn't a frontrunner anywhere. Although I'm always going to come back to the BAFTA nomination that it has. The sole single nomination that it has is Adapted Screenplay. Mm-hmm. And how strange is that? It feels really weird.
And which what corresponds with the one of its 3 nominations, the one category that we think it could have an outside shot in based on its popularity. Because, like you said, it's likely just going to be one of those cases where it has turned into a sort of a huge phenomenon. It is kind of not swept, but it is kind of one of this sort of barrage of guilds, including the SAG Ensemble Award, but may just oddly go home empty-handed.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a year unlike 2012, where everything but like one film won something, to a year where there's going to be a lot of things empty-handed this year, a lot. I don't know what much more to say about that, since we're also secure in our 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, essentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Kenneth, any thoughts on Best Picture right now?
This conversation was fascinating, really, but I think La La Land is locked.
It is.
I know. Every time I want to do like a headline called La La Locked, I'm like, just don't do it. Don't do it. But I might need to.
I already see a column in the future about Hidden Figures sole BAFTA nomination for adapted screenplay and hidden Oscar chances or something like that.
Exactly. My God. I already tweeted that I need to see like a Maxine Waters biopic with Taraji P. Henson like right now. I need it. And if Taraji wants like a lead actress,
Tyson.
I'm just saying if Taraji wants a lead actress nomination, then get on that Maxine Waters biopic now.
Yeah. Play a resistance leader.
I'm just saying, just do it. Do it.
Yeah, I think we would all line up to see that.
I would be way in the front of that line. So yes.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, we've kind of come to the end of this with Best Picture. We are at, holy shit, 2 hours 53 minutes, and that's before music. All right. I think this makes sense.
So basically we're at about the length of the actual Oscar ceremony.
Almost, but I have to say we're a little bit more entertaining than Jimmy what's-his-face. I don't know what his last name is because I don't care. And apparently 60% of watchers of the Oscars do not know who the Oscar host is. So, I don't know. I'm just going to say that much. But yes.
Well, thank you for having us, and for those that are still listening at this point, I hope this gave you, some insight. Probably not, but
That's usually my line. I usually at this point thank anyone that's actually still listening, and so yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank you very much, Evan.
Pretty sure nobody will ever get to this point.
No, that's not true because our Oscar prediction podcast, which was 3.5 hours long, was by far the most listened to and downloaded podcast in Awards Watch history.
I do remember that people tend to actually like the longer podcast because I guess it can, while they're like cleaning the house, they can listen to it or something. But
well, I mean that's what I do, but yes. It's funny because I thought that too. I was like, oh my god, I want to keep these podcasts to like an hour so people can listen to them, doing basic shit. And then I got these responses were like, no, bitch, I need like a 2-hour, 3-hour podcast. I'm like, I can do that, but I either need to take like a pee break or I need to drink more wine, something, or both.
Probably both.
Well, this time it was both, so it was all good. Yeah.
I was going to say that the one thing I will say is that as we end this podcast and, continue our wishful thinking around, this one or that one winning an Oscar on Sunday, I hope you'll be, wearing your T-shirt. It seems to be a good luck charm for the Golden Globe. Sort of.
That's funny that you mentioned that because I'm going to name drop like a bitch tonight. Because I was talking to... Oh, jeez. I sound like such a slut. I was talking to Barry Jenkins earlier today. And I'm like, who are you bringing? He's like, I don't know, nobody. And he's like, who are you what shirt are you gonna wear to the Oscars? And my only response is, I'm gonna wear a shirt with Moonlight on the front and Isabelle Huppert on the back, so that I can at least cover my bases a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think I will do that.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah, that feels necessary.
It does feel necessary because I mean, okay, let's be real. Let's be real right now. Outside of this prediction shit, even though I'm predicting Barry Jenkins to do fine with adapted screenplay, if he wins, when he wins, I will lose my shit. I will fucking lose my shit. But if Isabelle Huppert wins, I think both of you know exactly what my response is going to be since you saw it at the Golden Globes. So you know it's going to be like, someone needs to arrest this girl. Like now.
Yeah. Basically, it was all a blur.
But I think it was all of us, though. So
I think so too, and I kind of feel, and I hope that I was like, merged with the everybody in that.
We were all swept up in the general fervor of the room.
Okay, good. Then I feel okay, because if that were to happen, Lord have mercy, Lordy, Lord, that would be incredible.
Yes. Well, we'll allow ourselves to hope for that anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, I will post if I, predicted / picked the Oscars. Those will be up tomorrow as well. Oh my god, there's going to be so much up tomorrow. But it's
now or
Thursday.
never.
It's now or never, exactly. There's only a few days left for this. My goodness. But yes. So let's wrap this up. And I just want to say thank you so much, Kenneth and Evan, for joining me today for these Oscar winner predictions. Thank you, boys, so much.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to follow Awards Watch on Twitter, please go to @awards_watch, and go to Facebook, facebook.com/awardswatch, Instagram as well. And go to awardswatch.com, because tomorrow, from the time that you're listening to this, you'll find the Gold Rush Gang final Oscar predictions. And I don't think you need to go too much further than that. And as a sidebar, take a quick peek at the Awards Watch 50 Best Performances of 2016. There's some things I think you might find surprising, and some things you might really, really enjoy. And yeah, I think that's it for now. Like I said at the top, it is Wednesday, February 22nd. You're probably listening to this on Thursday, the 23rd. There's going to be a very special post-Oscar podcast on Monday after the Oscars. I will not reveal who the special guest is, but at the time, it's a pretty cool special guest. Until then, I hope everybody has a really awesome Oscar Sunday. I hope you boys both have an awesome Oscar Sunday. Do you have anything really fun or silly planned for that day?
I think we're going to do an Oscars just kind of watch party, but nothing too crazy, because I really like to be able to actually watch the ceremony, so something kind of small.
That's a really good plan.
Mm-hmm.
I blew that on the night that Julianne Moore won, and decided to get way too drunk for that night.
So it was that was understandable.
It was a fun night, and then I watched everything on video retrospective, and I was like, okay, yeah, all right, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, okay. Again, I want to say thank you to both Evan and Kenneth for joining me for this extraordinarily long and fantastic and detailed podcast. And I hope everybody has a wonderful Oscar Sunday. And please listen for us on Monday, the day after the Oscars, for the post-mortem and the oh my god, I can't believe that actually happened. So thank you, gentlemen, so much. Thank you, boys.
Have a great night. And happy Oscar watching to everybody over the next, 4 days.
Yes, 3 more days after tomorrow. That's it. There's not much more to go. All right. Thanks, everyone.